Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big, but this is one of the biggest. We have Peter Franchot in our house. Welcome, sir.
Pleasure to be here, Greg.
Now, you are the comptroller of the state of Maryland.
Yep, I'm called the accidental comptroller because years ago I ran against William Donald Schaefer, the 4-term mayor of Baltimore,
Yes.
2-term governor, 2-term comptroller, and kind of the Babe Ruth of politics. And somehow the stars all lined up. I won the race. I really didn't expect to. And here I am 13 years later, and lucky to have the job.
We're going to talk about this, but that was the first time where other Democrats said, how dare he do something?
Yes.
And it was, how dare he run against our venerable,
Right.
loved, not beloved, necessarily down here on the lower shore so much, but our former governor, our former mayor. How dare he do that? And now, sir, you are the biggest vote getter in Maryland history. You received more votes during your tenure than anyone who's ever run for office in Maryland.
Actually, my good friends in the legislature, not the critics that I had back then, but my good friends said, why are you running against Schaefer? He's going to destroy your career. You're going to lose badly. And I said, yeah, that's the intent that I have, because it's a way for me to get out of politics gracefully. Much as I love Annapolis, it's a place that is somewhat confining. So as comptroller, I've focused very much on people outside of Annapolis, and I've been rewarded by having a good connection to the voters. And you mentioned 620,264. I don't
counting.
know. Why would I even remember that? Why have I been ordered never to mention that in my house anymore? My wife doesn't want me bragging about it. But I got a big vote based on, I think, I get around a lot. I try to do my job right. I try to be a fiscal moderate. And I try to lay down the sword with Hogan at the Board of Public Works. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but I think that's what people want, and it seems to have been rewarded at the polls.
Well, you were in town just a few years ago with the governor, and it was a time when you guys were kind of new together. We didn't know how you were going to get along. And you did a big bipartisanship display, and you've kept to that.
Yeah, he famously broke in. I said the governor's a breath of fresh air, and he and I don't say bad things about each other in public and try to tear each other down, and that's the basis of a very positive relationship. And he leaned in and said, I don't even say bad things about you in private. So, yeah, it's a good relationship. We don't agree on everything, but it's one that's based on, we're both adults and we're both there in politics, I believe, for the right reason. We're not there to stay forever and be power, bosses and all that kind of stuff. We're there to get things done and try to make the state better.
That's really cool. How did tax season go this year? I guess it's still going on in some areas, but mostly we've hit the April 15th deadline.
Great question, because people want their refunds back.
I got my refund in 2 days, so thank you for that.
God bless that.
It wasn't as much as I wanted, but thank you anyway.
And you're on a special list. No, I'm
Yes.
kidding. Yeah.
Yes.
No, we try to get back within 2.1 business days. We distributed already about $2 billion in refunds to almost 2 million Maryland families, and they expect that. They like the fact we get their money back very quickly. And despite constant distraction and interference from the legislature, God bless them, but they are, beyond belief in a partisan mode. And so my relationship with Hogan is very frustrating for them, and so they're constantly interfering with the agency. I'm like, okay, guys, just let me do the tax season. And we got through it quite smoothly, knock on wood, and I'm hoping that it continues through the October period when we get the extensions in.
And right now you're about to launch your campaign for unclaimed property.
Yes, I'm very pleased with that.
We loved your commercial last year where you did the Liam Neeson thing.
Yeah,
You had
this
a
one's
specific
even
set of
better.
skills.
Even better, because I'm getting educated culturally on all the things that people understand in shows and things. And so now we have one coming out with what is it, the Property Brothers, I think, is the Takeoff, a show I didn't really know.
Oh, from Home and Garden TV, which I watch all the time, yes.
Yeah, apparently it's very well.
Yes, it is.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
about this. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see whether you think it makes sense or not. But once again, we're trying to reunite Marylanders with their money, and we're trying to, be customer service. We pride ourselves on answering the phone. The 800 number gets answered within 40 seconds. Not always, but generally that's the goal, with a live, friendly, professional employee of the office. And that, I find, makes a big difference, because people don't get that kind of customer service. With even big companies don't answer the phone.
Right. Well, it's fascinating. I've always ignored that thing. I've never really looked at it. And I had a friend call me last year and said, your name's on this thing. You should find out. And what it was, my father-in-law had passed away, and he had bought some stock in General Motors for my son, and somehow it was my name, and I never knew about it. So thank you for that.
Fabulous. I hope we kept it safe for you.
Yeah.
And
it was a couple $100. It was a great find.
Yeah, well, that'll get you a tank of gas.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the point is, a lot of states sit on that, and they don't advertise that they have it, because what happens is every state will get it, we monetize it, and then we give it to the legislature and the governor. They spend it, but we maintain the debt. It's in perpetuity. And a lot of states say, geez, we should just as soon not pay it. I prefer to pay it.
When you were new as comptroller, and I used to ask people how he's doing, the Knorr brothers here in Salisbury were one of the first people to come out and say, our comptroller is a great guy. And it was because you were very helpful to them in terms of growing their brewing operation. They were in Delaware, they'd moved to Maryland. There are all kinds of rules about beer that you could brew here and all that. You helped knock down a lot of those laws, but now you've tried to knock down some more laws in terms of the local brewers. Tell me about how that's going and what happened there.
Well, it's going thumbs up fabulously well. We really focused in on this franchise law that was a big problem for the state, because unlike other states, when you sign an agreement, if you're a brewer, a microbrewery, say RAR in Cambridge or Evo, Evolutionary Brewing in Salisbury, once you sign that agreement with a distributor, you're married for life. There's no way you can easily get away from that distributor, no matter how bad the service is or how much you don't think that they're doing what they should be doing. Most commercial enterprises, you have a contractual relationship. If you don't like what that person's doing, you can get out of it in their basic conditions. So that was a big wet blanket for the local craft beer industry, and that got changed this year in the legislature. I think it's going to be a very significant change. They also moved out a lot of these restrictions on how much beer can be produced. So I applaud the craft brewing folks for getting some of those regulations, not regulations, but statutory impediments removed. All they're asking is to have the same freedom that Budweiser and Miller and Coors have, which is to manufacture their product and sell it directly to Marylanders. And it's a boom business. We're very pleased with what they've been able to do as far as economic activity. The legislature finally, grudgingly gave them some extra relief. So kudos to everybody involved in that. Of course, no good deed goes unpunished. They stripped away my authority to regulate alcohol as a punishment.
Very critical of those lobbyists. You kind of called them out by name and really made a big issue out of it.
Yeah, we're going to continue to do that, because as you can see from these scandals that are all over Maryland in government and politics, particularly the most current one up in Baltimore City.
You were the first to come out against Catherine Pugh on that whole thing.
Well, you have to. First of all, it's damaging to the state's economy to have the mayor of the biggest city involved in something that almost seems cartoonish, but is definitely corrupt. So, yeah, we need to, my own party, Democrats, need to call the mayor out on that. And I'm glad to see that she has resigned. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. And, there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors that would appall average voters. And I'm determined over the next 3 years to shine a flashlight in on the back rooms of government where corruption and corrosive behavior just seems to be epidemic once it's out of the public. And that's the beauty of this scandal up in Baltimore, is that it's really out there. You understand what's going on, and people say, oh my God, how could that happen? It happens all the time. We just don't see it and understand it. As a result, people have lost a lot of confidence in local government and state government, and you can see that. It's not just the national debate that has deteriorated, it's the state and the local connection to government. So I'm going to, in addition to the customer service and all the support for small businesses that I've focused on, I'm going to focus on good government. I'm also going to focus on fiscal reform and also economic reform, so that people get a little bit of confidence back in their state officials.
Well, your message on Catherine Pugh I thought was appropriate, because it started with Baltimore can do better. You know, we need better for Baltimore than this. It wasn't just a giant gotcha exercise. It made you look at the entire city government and wonder what's going on.
Yeah, no, I love Baltimore. It's got a great collection of neighborhoods. It's a unique city. But this was a big problem for them, and it kind of channeled the spirit of William Donald Schaefer to me, because regardless of what you thought about William Donald Schaefer, and he didn't have any real use for me because I ran against him, the guy was a genius at picking up the trash and fixing the potholes and getting rid of the four-legged rats. And essentially saying, I'm on the side of the little guy and the voter, and I'm going to get service, and I'm going to make government work for them. Then when he came with these big ideas, the stadiums, the Inner Harbor economic thing, et cetera, public had a certain trust in William Donald Schaefer. I'd love to see a new mayor come to Baltimore with that kind of vision, and you know, someone who's not part of the establishment.
So they hurt you on the alcohol thing, and you were very helpful down in Worcester County in terms of obliterating that old process down there with the dispensary system, which the business people of Ocean City still applaud you for that. I hear that all the time. And then they also went after you on this school thing. It was an avenue for, I know our local legislators could get you on board in terms of school construction. You were a powerful voice to help advocate for when we needed things, and now that's all in jeopardy or troubled.
Yeah, it all comes back to the polarization of politics. And yes, you know, I'm aggressive and I'm firm as far as things that I say, and I'm not scared of calling people out by name. But the main target here is Governor Hogan, because they're Democrats. They don't like having a Republican governor. They view me as some of an apostate or whatever it's called, for being professional and helping him govern during the off seasons and off campaign seasons. So they really got themselves all worked up over that. And the machine has kicked in, but the machine is changing. The speaker passed away. The Senate president obviously has some significant physical challenges. Both of those two are been around so long and have had so much power that the folks that replace them may be similarly minded, but they're not going to be as effective.
What do you think of the new speaker that they've just elected?
Well, I hope that she governs as speaker with integrity, but boy, does that place need some reforms.
Right.
I mean, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean it, and I don't care if you're a liberal Democrat or you're a conservative Republican. It's just human nature, and they need to open up the House of Delegates and the Senate to the rank-and-file senators and rank-and-file delegates. And what does that mean? Nobody should be speaker for more than 2 terms. Nobody should be a committee chairman for more than 2 4-year terms. There should be a steering and policy committee made up of rank-and-file Democrats or rank-and-file Republicans, if they're running the place, that are a check and balance upon someone sitting there and being able to determine by fiat what the agenda is, what bills are presented, who are the committee chairs. All of that stuff is corrosive at some point. And so I wish the new speaker very well. I know her very well because I served with her for many years.
You were in the House Delegates for a long time.
Yes, I was on the Appropriations Committee for 20 years, and so we don't have the somewhat of the friction that has built up between me and the old speaker and the current Senate president. So you can go in and rebuild relationships, but it's not those relationships that I worry about. It's the culture of the rules don't apply to us. We're able to do things behind closed doors because we can, and we're allowed to punish people that are trying to do good things just because it preserves our power. So government changes are necessary, and I think Democrats and Republicans around the state would love to see the state's voting laws change so that independents or unenrolled people can vote in these party primaries and help moderate some of
one year during Ehrlich, as an independent, I was able to vote in the Republican primary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
just the
needs
1
to
year.
come. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you can do that administratively, and each party should, because there are 800,000 or 900,000 independents
Yeah.
who are just cut out of the most important decisions. So there are lots of things that can be done to help good government, lots of things that can be done to help small businesses and obviously the voters. But boy, we need to get in and have some elected officials that embrace transparency, accountability, and honesty. And the example for that is the Board of Public Works. It's open to the public. Anybody can show up. Anybody can speak. You can talk directly to the governor, the comptroller, and the treasurer. There's no pre-meeting where we
it seems like
bake everything.
there's honest discussion in that thing all the
Yeah.
time. It used to be fun to watch because there was a lot of this, but
Yeah.
you guys seem more organized and more respectful of each other, but it's always a great set.
And we've done things for
Yeah.
the public. I mean, we've completely changed the procurement system. It used to be a incumbent vendor protection program.
Yeah.
Because, these contracts would come tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for a single contract, and there'd be one bidder, and it would be the incumbent. And the agency would say, of course, they gave us a great deal.
Yeah.
And both Hogan and I say, oh, they gave you a great deal. Prove it. Get a second bid.
Yeah.
And the single bid contracts have gone from well over 100 down to less than 15 a year. And that's just good for the taxpayer.
Yeah, we had a situation with a land acquisition where the state was going to buy the development rights, and it looked like it was going to slide right through. And you started asking some hard questions at a Board of Public Works meeting, and I knew the owners of the property, and they started to panic, and they were like, is Peter on our side or not? I was like, he's going to ask hard questions, and they're going to make the right decision.
Yeah.
It might not be so easy for you after all. If it's the right answer, then he'll come up with the right answer.
But the key thing is to ask the questions in public.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of our country's system. The whole country and the state is built upon, nobody's above the law, and everybody, the rules apply to everybody. Well, the Board of Public Works is out to prove that. I think it's been a success, and I just hope it spreads to the House of Delegates, the Senate, City of Baltimore.
What about this school construction thing? I know you're popular in Mardella, one of our rural towns here, where they have a high school, because every year, not every year, but 1 year you gave them the Silver Hammer Award, which is your great award for doing the
Maintenance.
most with this resource that's sort of in decline. And they really appreciate the recognition that you gave. Now the county was looking at doing a complete renovation of that school. County executive just announced he wants to put it off a year or 2 years because of the Kerwin Commission costs. And the uncertainty of the future economy. So where is everything with our school construction? Do you want to talk about that?
Well, they stripped the authority away from the Board of Public Works for oversight of school construction, because the governor and I were focused on, at a minimum, Baltimore City and Baltimore County should have air conditioning and heating in their school classrooms, and that
Sounds
proved to
pretty
be,
basic to me.
Yeah, it sounded, kind of normal.
Especially when they're going to start school before Labor Day now.
But the powers to be thought that was it was an implied criticism of the local Democrats who were running the places up there. So they got all agitated and they took that authority away from the board. These things do not hurt either the governor or me, because I assume he's going to have a big hearing on how much money he's going to put into school construction. So he's going to ask everybody to come in,
Right.
which is fair. After the budget, we'll turn it into a before the budget review. So school construction will continue to have oversight on. He had an excellent plan that he put in to provide additional funds for school construction, legislature pushed that aside and began some kind of process for operating funds going into the system. It's a long-winded way of saying I think we could do a lot with school construction and making the schools reconstructed and renovated, but also better maintained, which is what we gave the Silver Hammer Award out for. But simply by paying attention also, holding people accountable, that's going to be a little more difficult given the, once again, we don't want you guys meddling in something that makes us possibly not look great. And that stuff is so petty. And
you guys are all on the same team.
It's inexplicable to the public why that would be a major concern. They just want to get the job done.
I enjoy reading the Baltimore Sun even still, just as a newspaper guy. One day the Baltimore Sun will write, Peter Franchot is only a Democrat when it's convenient for him. And the next day they'll write, the Democrats need to back off on Peter Franchot and leave him alone.
Yeah.
What is it like walking both sides of the wall?
Well, first of all, I have great relations with Democrats and Republican senators and delegates because I treat them just like I treat everyone else, which is open and honest and on the level. The Sun papers have a real historic interest in sticking up sometimes for the establishment, as it's called. So that's where we have some friction, but I stumbled onto this, really, that the more I speak out, the clearer I am with what it is that I find troublesome, the more the public likes it. And the papers just have to come along sometimes. It's, you know, my wife doesn't like it, but I don't care.
Do you ever say to your wife, when it comes time to take the garbage out, do you ever say to her, like, well, did you get 1 million votes lately?
Yeah, no, because that would get a very sharp answer right back. And we just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
As one of my friends said, to the same person too, right? I said yes. And so I'm lucky. I'm married to someone who's very strong and independent and doesn't really think politics is completely a noble profession, but I do, and we often kid each other about our different vocations because she's a lawyer, so she's in another professional area. I'm in politics, and it all works out. But yeah, she's someone to be handled very gently as far as any assertions of authority.
One thing we all count on the comptroller's office is to sort of predict the economic landscape, what we've got ahead of us looking out 12, 18 months. Just a few weeks ago, there was talk of a recession November, a year from now. What are you seeing out there? Like lately, though, I'm hearing there is no recession with the jobs report. Perhaps things are going to be better for a while. What do you guys see for the economy over the horizon?
Yeah, we have some real problems coming up, let's be honest. I mean, we're juiced up the economy with these federal tax cuts. It's a one-time only phenomena. It's not really as rosy as people think. I know you read about the jobs numbers and you say, oh boy, isn't that great? But I would not have any kind of, what do they call that, ticker parade or whatever it is, you know?
Ticker tape parade.
Ticker tape parade. I would not have one of those right now because it's up in the air. And I certainly wouldn't agree with the president to a $2 trillion infrastructure investment where it's not paid for. And it's just going to increase the debt. So yes, the economy looks good through certain lenses such as employment, but it doesn't look half as good when you look at wages and earnings growth. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty, part of it from the volatility of the chief executive. I mean, the ups and downs of the Trump administration are on a daily basis are just stunning. I'm not talking about whether you agree with them or not. It's just the volatility. And that is not good for an economic trend because business needs credibility and predictability. So I would say it's more likely than not that we have a significant downturn as far as the economy. And I think we as citizens ought to say, look, let's make sure we're cautious. Let's make sure we can pay our bills and get through a downturn should it occur. I'm talking in the next 1 to 2 years. but Trump and everybody are focused on the election. That's all they want to get through. That's not a good foundation for sound economic analysis. So I hope that both at the state level and the national level, people will slow down and make sure that whatever they're doing is helpful to promoting the kind of economic activity that would be reflected by ordinary people. When I go around the state and talk to people, they're not particularly enthusiastic about the economy. Some of them are working 2 or 3 jobs, but they're not making more money and being more comfortable. So I've read the same reports you do. I would urge the voters in the state of Maryland to have the economy first, second, and third on their agenda as far as what we're focused on.
The question I ask you every year, and you hate it every year, but I have to ask you, I think things have changed though. Are you going to run for governor? You always said you were too conservative that you could never win a primary, but the candidates that the Democrats put up last election were not exactly exciting by any means. Didn't really capture anyone's imagination. You are the top vote getter of all time. What are you thinking about this? I don't see a Republican to run.
Now my worry is that I might win. Yeah, I run and I win, and it's not that great a job when you actually look at it. But seriously,
I would enjoy calling you governor.
Yeah, well, careful! Don't say that around my house. Yeah, that would
you would never have to take the trash out then.
Yeah, no, it would be terrible. But I have a lot of people tugging my sleeve, and we're definitely going to take a look at it. But I kid people and say my dad is now 97 years old. Lives near me in Montgomery County, B-24 bomber pilot in World War II.
Wow. Are you still in Tacoma Park?
Still in Tacoma Park, and so I kid my critics that, my dad's 97, I'm not term limited as comptroller. So be careful. But on the governor's race, we're going to take a look at it because I think the issues of the day, the need for fiscal reform and economic reform and government reform are so pressing, and people are so disconnected right now. Maybe I could contribute something, but we're going to take probably a couple of years before we make a decision on that.
Any message for those of us here on the Lower Shore that you want to spread while you're here?
Well, the Shore is one of the great regions of the state, and I enjoy coming over here. I love the people, I love the character and the values, and I consider it to be America from the greatest generation perspective over on the Shore. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be and honored and privileged to have the voters over here as people that pay my salary and I can serve. So yeah, it's all good. I'm not sure I'll ever serve as long as Louis Goldstein.
How long was that? 32 years?
40 years.
30 years.
40.
Wow. 42.
Yeah. That's a long time.
That's a long time. And he wanted to be governor a couple times and it didn't work out.
He did. He did. I think he ran for the Senate too at one point. But they also, despite his popularity, they tried to eliminate his office.
Yeah.
And so from a historic perspective, I think comptrollers, because we're fiscally moderate and we're independent of the political machines, we're always kind of irritating for the powers that be, but very popular with the public.
He's Peter Franchot. He's our comptroller. We're honored every time we get to sit down with him once a year. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Greg.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.